Hi everyone, my name is Sadie Stoner. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm a second year sociology student at the University of Sunderland in Northeast England. And I'm currently on an exchange semester at San Jose State University, and I'm really looking forward to sharing my research with you all on this great platform. My research examines how society is normalizing racism and the power of microaggressions, how they increase racially fueled tension and lead to macroaggressions. My evidence comes from analysing previous published literature, and I would also like to note an acknowledgement of my privilege as a white woman when talking about racial issues in this discussion. I'm trying to bring about more awareness and education to a topic that countless Black and people of colour have advocated for before me, and I hope to bring grace to this topic, which I'm lucky to not be subjected to. So please never forget to check your privilege before discussing this topic. Microaggressions are everyday verbal and nonverbal interactions that create a hostile environment by communicating a bias towards marginalized groups and/or individuals. These interactions usually go unnoticed or are easily accounted for by the perpetrator with an excuse since they are only words or it's just a joke. In this presentation, I'm going to focus on analyzing the power of words that they have in racial conflict. And despite microaggressions being verbal and nonverbal, just for the purpose of these 5 minutes, I'm going to hone in on verbal forms they take, such as micro insults and jokes. I will finally discuss how white people can improve and advocate the need for accountability in a society that continues to normalize and perpetuate racism. To look at microaggressions, it's important to study their relation to macroaggressions, which occur at a structural level encompassing actions that are meant to exclude either by action or omission. And here I have pictured various examples of resistance towards macroaggressions, such as institutionalized racism within the police and police brutality. In the wake of the Black Lives Matter movement and an increase in racially fueled violence, a lot of quote unquote woke people found themselves questioning how they can make a difference and eliminate these overt acts of racism. So why should we not just focus on the bigger picture of macroaggressions and commit to protest like is shown in these pictures? The problem is that a lot of people that want to make a change in racist ideology are not willing to commit to direct action such as protesting, striking, and boycotts, which have received a stereotype of being violent. This is why I'm advocating for those people to commit to a more manageable change at the ground level with microaggressions. So if you're still wondering why microaggressions matter so much when we could focus on bigger issues like racially fueled violence, let's look at some real examples of racial microaggressions that I took from a study at Columbia University. And I've called these nice interactions because the white person speaking is attempting to prove their righteousness or their non-racism, which is very harmful and keeps microaggressions in play so that they are not challenged or dismantled. A very common one we hear is, I'm not racist, I have several Black friends. This sends a message that the only requirement to not being racist is that you can stand being acquainted to a person of color. And if you can do that, you are instantly immune from racism. If it was that easy, racism would not exist. Another one, everyone can succeed in society if they work hard enough. This transmits the myth of meritocracy, where we all have equal opportunities and it's just up to how hard you work for them. And race plays no role in life successes. But from countless studies, research, advocacy, and testimonies from people of color, it is evident that systematic and institutionalized racism is real and restricts opportunities for people of color. So the next steps to change, to stop normalizing racism and eliminate microaggressions are to first accept racism exists, acknowledge that we live in a racist society and the institutions and systems of control, including the Constitution, were all built on slavery and colonial ideology. One example of how racism is built into our institutions is in healthcare, where Black women are 3 times more likely to die in pregnancy and postpartum than white women. The next step is to check your privilege and learn how your social position is damaging to people of color. A very useful way to do this is through an intersectional lens, which is a perspective that studies the way multiple social groupings come together in a complex system of oppression. Kimberly Crenshaw was the one to coin this term, intersectionality, and in her words, the better we understand how identities and power work together from one context to another, the less likely our movements for change are to fracture. In other words, the only way to create change is to understand the complexity at which systems like racism and patriarchy work in conjunction with one another. Now we need to have uncomfortable conversations with friends, family, strangers, anyone. That is where the change is made. Finally, stop being silent, call out racism, and when you hear or see microaggressions at play, know that not saying anything is normalizing and perpetuating racism. Yeah, this is the hardest step to make and implement because it was so easy to be a bystander. And I will admit that I sometimes forget my own role in racism when it is not oppressing me. So white people, consider yourselves called out to take notice of our words and interactions and start making some changes. And these are the works I've cited. And thank you for listening, and please keep being an advocate.